I was born in 1937 in Salt Lake City. My father was a furniture salesman, and then for a period of time he owned his own furniture business. But after the war, when business started to boom, he and his partner felt that they had to move to a new store, and that they had to fill all three floors. It's not easy to say. And so they overbought and eventually lost their business. But for years and years then, he sold as a wholesale furniture salesman. I went to several schools. One, how far back would you want me to go?
Starting grade school, and where did you go?
Well, I started at Longfellow Elementary School up on the avenues. And then from there I moved to Webster Elementary School, which was down on 7th East and or 8th East and 4th South, in that area. And incidentally, that's where I met Randy Air. And so Randy and Air really have known each other that long. But from there I went to Bryant Junior High School, and from there to East High School. And I was in East High School till 1955. And then my parents moved up into Mount Olympus area, and so I subsequently went to Olympus High School and graduated from Olympus. I'm not so sure that I had any stellar heroes in particular. I always looked up to my father, of course, and my mother was a very lovely woman. My brother was, the siblings didn't particularly get along like some stellar siblings would. We had our issues, and my brother, I don't know if he told you this story or not, but when he and a friend were so irritated with my being around them one day, they tied me to a tree. And at dinner time, my mother asked Larry, "Where is David?" And Larry, I guess, had a funny look on his face, and he went out in the front yard, and I was still tied to the tree. So, yeah, it was interesting growing up. Well, I played everything. There on 7th East used to have a grass, kind of a parkway, and we'd play football there just about every night. And then if we didn't play football, we were out playing baseball. And I was pretty active in all of those sports that were available at that time. I'd love to have been able to play soccer, and of course that didn't come in until later. And so mostly it was basketball, though. I probably, in our family, was the most active. I don't remember Larry being much of an athlete, although he was when he went to the university. But he was on the ski team and so on. And I skied a lot when I was, a little older. In fact, it was a good thing that I moved from East High School to Olympus, because at East High School I had several friends that we would slough and go skiing. So I did a lot of that when I was younger. Larry skis to this day, but unfortunately because of my knee I can't ski anymore, so I had to give it up. Well, I have always been involved in sales in one way or another, and for a period of time I was the sports manager in the sports department at ZCMI, and that led me to another job that became available, selling out products to construction sites. Stud guns, I don't know if you're familiar with them at all, but I used to sell for Hilti fastening systems. I did that for a while, and then I decided I don't want to do that anymore, and I went up to the University of Utah and sat in on some of the interviews that they were doing, and a pharmaceutical company, Ortho Pharmaceutical Company representative was here, and he interviewed me and hired me on the spot. And so for 34 years I worked for Ortho Pharmaceutical, which, by the way, is a Johnson & Johnson company. So I've been in sales most of my career. in the course of my career, I knew just about every doctor in 5 states, and some were far more interesting than others, but most of those centered here in the Valley were very fine people. And I don't remember ever meeting anyone like our friend Randy, for example, who's met every important person in the world. And none of them really stand out other than, the fine people that I called as customers.
Any roads not taken, any choices that you've made that you look back and regret?
Not that I particularly want to talk about. We're all different and have different likes and dislikes, and if I could redo my life, I would redo about 30 years of it. But from the age of 45 to now has been wonderful, and life has been good, and I can look back on those years with admiration and a good deal of happiness. I don't know whether you would consider this an accomplishment or not, but my greatest happiness has been my wife. And the day we were married was one of the happiest and one of the saddest days, because she and I eloped, and that was very interesting situation. And I didn't finish my story about how we met. She was Alpha Chi Omega, and we were at a Christmas party, and I was with another young lady who knew Tina, and Tina caught my eye. She was very attractive, as you know, and this date that I was with, we were kind of falling out, and so I asked her if she would introduce me to Tina, and she did. And then so I called Tina and talked to her and tried to get a date with her, and she was booked for weeks in advance. And so I persisted, and then so I got it down to 1 week in advance that I could get a date. And finally, we fell in love, and it was about 6 months after we met that we married. But she was going to California to visit her sister, and I decided then that I wanted to marry her. And I said, well, okay, I won't dissuade you from that, but you've got to agree to marry me on the way. And so we went to Elko, Nevada, and I took her to her sister's house in California and then drove home. And she couldn't live without me so she came home about 2 weeks later. She was planning on spending the whole summer, and that was why we got married, because we didn't want to be apart. I didn't want her to leave for that long. And so she found out she couldn't live without me either, and so she came back after 2 weeks. It was a wonderful marriage. It's been, we celebrate our 55th anniversary next year. I thought it was this year, and so we took her to Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, well, I guess I can repeat that or go somewhere else next year. So, as far as my accomplishments are concerned, I excelled in my profession. I could have gone up the ladder, but I didn't want to leave Salt Lake. My family's here, and none of them have ever moved away, and so since we're such a close-knit family, I decided that I wanted to stay here, and so I made the best of my profession here. And when I first started, I covered four states, and when I finished my career, I was relegated because of how I built up the business to just Salt Lake. So along the way, I feel comfortable about my accomplishments. I won a number of awards, and was compensated for it.
I imagine you took your competitive nature into sales as well as you do into your sports.
Well, you know, that's an interesting question because I think if you were to talk to my competitors, I think they would say without exception, that they didn't like me because I was so successful. One of our main products was a women's healthcare product, and I just blew my competition away. And so, it was by making friends more than anything with my customers, with the physicians I called on, and so that was it was an interesting time. And I think you might find, if you were able to interview any of them, that yeah, I was pretty competitive as far as the salesman was concerned. But you know, I really don't feel I'm that competitive, except when I get on the tennis court. Especially when I'm playing with my brother, I want to beat him so bad. And I don't know why, because you know, I couldn't compete with him in any other way, except for on the golf course. I was a better golfer than he. He finally threw his clubs down in disgust and quit playing. So I think he still plays once in a while with a grandson, but he hasn't played for quite a while. You know, now that soccer is so popular, my daughter's sons have all played soccer. She has 6 boys and 2 girls, as a matter of fact. And well, 2 of them kind of dropped out, but 2 of them right now are playing for BYU. One plays is in his senior year for Brighton High School, and he will play for BYU. He's already been approached. And then my son's daughter has already signed on for BYU soccer team. So the beat goes on as far as the soccer is concerned. And there's another one of my daughter's sons who is just a sophomore now. And he plays for Brighton. In fact, last week he played for the JV team. And so, yeah, we've attended about 10,000 soccer games and enjoyed about 9,000 of them.
Do you have a daily routine, food, exercise restrictions?
Well, you know, I have this Fitbit that I keep track of my steps, and I have a daily goal of 10,000 steps, and I've exceeded that by at least 2,000 or 3,000 every day. And I've never been much of a stickler for working out. I do it off and on. Oh, I do have food restrictions since I had my last heart operation. And so I am on a limited diet, and I can't have a garlic burger anymore, but I'm going to cheat and have one pretty soon again. But mostly I eat fish and chicken and so on. In fact, I'm either going to start laying eggs or I'm going to be a better swimmer, but I don't know which will come first. I had bypass surgery over 10 years ago, and that's open heart surgery, as you know. And I did the rehab on it, but not faithfully as I should have. And so it didn't last as long as it should have. And then 6 months ago, I went in because I had shortness of breath. I went in and it was determined that only about 35% of my heart was functioning, and that so they did some testing and discovered that all of my bypass grafts were blocked except for one, and it was doubtful whether or not that they could put a stent in. But ultimately, one of the very finest physicians here in town, who does nothing but stents, placed one about 3 or 4 months ago, and now I've been reborn. I play tennis now without wheezing or becoming breathless, and I can walk for 4 or 5 miles without any problem at all, and it's been really great to have that surgery. Probably my love of life, for one thing. My church has played a vital role in that, and always given me lofty goals, and has given me an eternal perspective that I wouldn't have had, and so I do a lot of things that keep me afloat and keep me grounded. One thing that I've enjoyed, and my wife as well, is we've traveled a good deal, been virtually all over the world, and that has contributed to these later fulfilled life, part of my life. This is an original artist painting that we purchased at the Montmartre, M-O-N-T-M-A-R-T-E, in Paris. This was from, where did I tell you?
Florence.
Florence, yeah. That's the Arno River there in Florence.
What about those beautiful figurines right above you?
These here,
Yeah.
these are just some that we collected from here. In fact, well, these are from China too. These little bears. Just about everything that we picked up, that's up here anyway, have been mementos, little mementos of where we travel. This is one of the fun little music boxes that we picked up in Moscow. This is actually on Red Square, very famous cathedral there. And it has a charming song, and I can't remember what it was called. Yep, this is also from China. This is silk, and you can tell the quality of it by the number of threads that it has. And this has so many threads, it's very difficult to even count. And this was about the size that I could afford. This beautiful black lacquer screen we picked up on our travel to China. Unfortunately, when they shipped it, one of the panels was damaged, and so we had to have one replaced. So it's not quite the original, but this piece we've treasured and always had a nice place in our living room, and reminded us of a wonderful trip to China.
I said, you know, I'm getting a little lightheaded, so if I don't make it through the next set, it's been nice knowing you guys in China. And Dave says, can I have your racket?